Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be covering an important topic for recruiters, job intakes. It's really where the recruiting process really starts. We're going to talk about what a job intake is, why they're important, and some of the questions and processes that I've used in the past to help me better understand the job description and be successful. Now, there's so many different ways that you can go about this, so many different questions, but I'd love to be able to hear from you, in the comment section. What are some of the questions and processes that you've used in the past that have helped you become a successful recruiter and better understand the job description? And of course, if you find value in this video, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. All right, let's get started. Job intake. In today's agenda, we will be discussing what a job intake is, why it's important, how to prepare, and intake questions. Now, before we get started, it is really important for you to take notes. So if you do not have a pen and paper or a Word document, pause the video, go get it really quick. These are going to be, a lot of golden nuggets that again have helped me become very successful and being able to understand the job description. So make sure you take notes, you save them somewhere on a Word doc that's going to help you, be able to go ahead and return to these notes. So what is a job intake? Maybe you've been working at a recruiting agency now for a couple weeks, a couple months, and maybe they haven't provided the training for you that you need. And that's okay. I understand that managers are busy, especially, when it's a commission-driven environment. However, taking a step back and understanding what a job intake is going to be really important, right? Now, these may have been called a qualification call. These may have been called a intake meeting, right? Or a qual call. Essentially what a job intake is, it's a qualification call with a hiring manager, between the recruiter and the hiring manager at the starting process of the hiring. These early conversations are intended to establish objectives for the recruitment process and to get an understanding of what the ideal candidate profile looks like. So again, it's just a qualification call or intake meeting between the recruiter, yourself, and the hiring manager at the start of the hiring process. This is really important to happen. I have a rule of thumb with myself that I do not like to work a requisition unless I either have performed a job intake or have intake notes from somebody that I trust that knows how to perform one. So again, really important to understand what it is. Now, why is it important? Just as important as to understand what it is, it's important to understand why it's important. A job intake is a critical step in the recruitment process where a recruiter, yourself, gathers essential information from the hiring manager. The hiring manager is the person that typically at the end of the day is going to be working with your candidate on a day-to-day basis. Most likely your candidate will be reporting to the hiring manager, right? So it's important to gather essential information from the hiring manager, about the hiring manager, and about the specific job opening, right? So here's some bullet points that I think, provide an overview of why this is important. First, it creates a relationship between yourself and the hiring manager. This is super important. Recruiting, for those of you that have been in it for a long time, that recruiting is all about relationships, right? So being able to create a relationship between yourself and the hiring manager is going to help you in the long run. Secondly, you get to understand the job requirements. You cannot recruit or source or explain the position to a candidate unless you fully understand the job requirements. Aligning on job expectations, right? Aligning on expectations. Now, I think it is really important for you to understand directly from the hiring manager of what expectations will look like and how success is going to be measured, right? Are they going to expect, for this position to be filled in 3 days, in 2 weeks, a month, 3 months? What does the activity look like for this, right? Being able to get clarification on that is going to provide you with an understanding if you're doing a good job or not. And lastly, look, I have a passion for candidate experience, right? I actually work very closely with Ask Nicely, who provides NPS scores. And creating a good candidate experience is why we also do a job intake, right? We want to be able to provide a good candidate experience through the whole recruitment process. So it's really important. Now, how to prepare. I've been a big believer. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That was said by Benjamin Franklin, right? you need to plan for the job intakes. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do that. So how to prepare. Ensuring that you're prepared before connecting with the hiring manager is super important. Being unprepared may cast doubts on your ability to handle the job proficiently. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that. Being unprepared may cast doubts on your ability to handle the job proficiency, right? In the following slides, we'll discuss essential aspects that you should prepare for. Guys, if you are unprepared for the job intake, it is going to be evident, and this hiring manager is not going to want to work with you, or it might not be the best first impression, right? So let's move forward with what you should have, right? You should have received the job descriptions by now. Prior to the call, it is crucial to have a job description in order to anticipate and formulate relevant questions during the job intake discussion, right? So here are the steps that I've done when I receive a job intake for, a position that I'm either familiar with or I'm not familiar with. I still take the same steps. So I look at the job description and identify what I know and what you don't know. That is very important, right? If you're working for a senior accountant position, you need to identify the things that you know from accounting and things you do not know. Same goes with the tech position, a logistics position, a construction position. I take the same approach every single time. I identify what I know and what I don't know. I also research the industry, right? Is this in the tech industry? Is this in the finance industry? I do research about the company, right? You need to be able to be prepared of what the company does, their mission statement. What are some of the Glassdoor reviews? Do people like working there? Do people maybe not like working there, right? We need to get an understanding of their values, right? Thirdly, do you understand the job responsibilities? Going into a job intake, you may not understand the job responsibilities, but you need to at least have somewhat of an idea of what this person's going to be doing, right? Are they going to be developing? Are they going to be doing, end of year closing if you're going to be an accountant, right? Maybe this position is, more of a blue collar work and this person is more of a maintenance tech, right? We need to understand what the job responsibilities are before we get in there so we can get clarification on those job responsibilities throughout the call. This next bullet point is really important for me. I think, part of being successful in recruitment is being resourceful, right? If you do not understand something on the job description, make sure you Google it. I cannot stress that enough. There's so much information out there for free, right? There's Google, there's YouTube that can go ahead and explain to you a little bit about what the job is doing. I myself am a visual learner, so I need to watch, YouTube videos to understand, front-end development versus back-end development and what is full-stack development, right? What is, how to utilize C#, why is that important, right? Or a little bit about, GAAP accounting financial principles, right? What is that? Okay, let me go to Google. Let me try to do some research on it. Let me try to get a visual on it on YouTube so I can get, a little prepared. And a lot of the things you'll see there might be echoed in the job intake. So again, it's really important to, if you do not understand something, to make sure you Google it. And lastly, prepare questions with your team for the hiring manager. Again, you may do this with your team, and which we'll talk about in the next slide, but make sure you have questions prepared for the hiring manager with your team. Prepare with your team. It's essential to collaborate with your team and determine a designated leader for the call. This could be your manager, this could be your team lead, this could be your senior recruiter, or it could be yourself. It really just depends on, the organization that you work with. Maybe, this is your second week and it's your first time hopping on the call. It's definitely great to shadow, but things you need to identify. Who is taking the lead on the call? If there's 4 of you people, not all 4 of you can talk at the same time. Someone must take the lead on this. How many people are going to be on the call? I have a rule of thumb that maybe it should be max like 2 or 3 people from your team, right? And the hiring manager, that should be enough people. Who's going to be making the introductions, right? This is really important to also do before, you hop into the job intake. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself, right? Who are you? What company do you do? What do you specialize in? And a little bit of your experience. And you also want to ask the hiring manager for a little bit of their background. Hey, hiring manager, can you tell me a little bit about what your role is at the company? What do you do? What drove you to essentially join this company? those introductions are going to be really important, but it's also very important to identify who's going to be leading those introductions. And lastly, be dressed to impress, right? This can be, qualification calls or job intakes can essentially be done in person, over the phone, or virtually. Obviously, after COVID-19, a lot of us have definitely gone into a remote setting. It is still important to be dressed to impress. You only get one chance to essentially make a first impression. So make sure you have good lighting, make sure your laptop or phone, if you're joining from your phone as a last resort, is fully charged. You have, it's quiet where you're at, you have a professional background, and you're neatly groomed. Cool? Next, know your hiring manager. Hiring managers are people as well. Building a personal connection with the hiring manager is key to breaking down barriers and establishing trust. As I mentioned before, half the battle is getting the hiring manager to genuinely appreciate you, right? So how do we do that? Really important to understand how you do that. Easily, look into the hiring manager's LinkedIn profile, right? Was there anything interesting about the hiring manager that caught your attention? Maybe they've worked at, in the past at companies you may have worked at. Did they attend a school that, maybe you've attended, right? Or any interest that they have. LinkedIn provides a lot of information that you can gather, and being able to look at, the companies they've worked at, schools they've attended, and any interests they have is really important. You have to be likable. In recruiting, you have to be a likable person to the candidate, to your managers, and to your clients, right? And the way to be likable is by building rapport with your points of contact. Now, I've always heard this, in order to be interesting, you have to sound interested, right? So identify what their hobbies are. Identify what maybe their favorite bar or food, some of the family members, where they're from, right? By identifying these key things, you have the ability to start a conversation each time you meet with them and allow them to be humane. So, hey, hiring manager, how was your weekend? Anything cool that you did this weekend? That's awesome. What did you get to eat there, right? What's your favorite drink? Did you watch any of these sports? Who's your favorite NFL team? Who's your favorite, NBA team? Oh, that's mine too, right? Those types of questions are going to make you stand out from different people that skip this very important step of a job intake and they just dive right into it. Now, on the other hand, you also have to be cautious, as some of the hiring managers may be cutthroat and might not enjoy small talk. They may go ahead and be like, weekend was great, can we get started, right? My favorite NFL team, doesn't matter, don't watch football, I need to get back to work, so can we hurry up and get this job intake, right? So you do have to have the ability to tailor to your hiring manager's needs and personality. That's really important. You have to be agile to, be able to hop on a call with one hiring manager who's super bubbly, friendly, and 30 minutes later hop on a call with somebody who's just cutthroat and does not care about you and just wants their position filled. That is okay, right? What's really important is that you just gather the intake questions that are needed. So, which leads me to my next slide, right? Section 4, this is going to be, where a lot of the golden nuggets are of the intake questions, right? So again, please pay attention. Please take notes. This is going to help you a lot. First things first is you want to understand the company. It's vital to really grasp the inner workings of the company you're recruiting for. This way, you can easily explain the company to your candidates, right? So how I would propose this when asking a hiring manager is, hey, hiring manager, can we please discuss, can you tell me a little bit about the company? I was able to do some research online. I read this about your company. This really stood out to me, but I'd love to hear directly from you, what the company's like, its mission, its values, and can you share with me a little bit about the company culture, right? That we can go ahead and explain to the candidates. Do you have any notable publications or articles about your company that could help in attracting potential candidates? Now, that's not really a question. How I would go ahead and word it is say, hey, is there anything public online that I could share with the candidates that may help them attract? Things like, did the company just go public? Did they hit a certain revenue goal, right? Are they in the New York Times? Are they a tech company that maybe just went ahead and solved a big solution and just got some funding, right? Some of these notable publications or articles are going to be in the upper hand, are going to give you the upper hand when recruiting with some candidates that you're going to be able to send information to them after your screening. Next thing, understanding why the role is open. this is very, very important, right? We need to understand the reason behind this position, right? This provides valuable insights into the current situation within the company. A couple bullet points here that I would love to ask is, hey, John, can you please share a little bit why this position is open? Understanding why the new role is open, whether it's a new role, a replacement, or a backfill is key, right? If this is a new position, that's super exciting, right? We want to understand what's behind the decision to create a new role. This could be, maybe the company's growing, maybe they just got some funding, they're expanding into different areas of the country that you're in, a new market, and this can be a new role. Now, if it's a backfill, that's important to identify some reasons too. We need to identify the reason behind the departure of the previous person if possible, right? A backfill, for those of you that don't know, is essentially someone who leaves or was removed from the current position that you're recruiting for. If this is a replacement of a current employee, identify why the person is not working out, right? So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the third and fourth bullet point. So if it's a backfill, we need to identify why the person left. If possible, the company may hold that information for HR reasons, which is totally okay. But if you can ask, hey, John, can you tell me a little bit about, do we know why this person left the current position? Maybe that person left because, they were relocating. Maybe they just found a new opportunity and, maybe they just didn't align with the company culture and values. That is okay. But we want to be able to find that, right? It's going to help us be able to identify a better candidate than the person that left. Now, if this was a replacement, we need to go ahead and identify why that person wasn't working out as well. This also could be a confidential role. That might be a way of telling them, hey, we need to replace the current person that is in the position. Maybe the person's not working out because they don't align with the company values, the company culture, performance, technically, right? If they're software engineers, maybe they're just not technically up to par where they need to be. It could be an issue of attendance. Whatever that is, we need to be able to identify. Again, if possible. Position details. It is important to get an understanding of the role, including the responsibilities, qualifications, skills, and experience required. This knowledge is going to be very important for you to be able to identify the right candidate. So let's start off with some of these bullet points, right? What is the job title and main responsibilities for this role? I know a lot of you guys might be like, job titles, right? The reason why I go ahead and say this is because you as a recruiter in the industry could be known as a executive recruiter, you could be known as a talent partner, you could be known as a search consultant, you could be known as a staffing consultant, you could be known as a recruiter or a headhunter, right? All different job titles that essentially do the same thing, recruit, right? So you need to be careful a little bit about what job titles, but we do want to understand what this job title is, especially if it's, a DevOps versus a senior DevOps engineer, or a accountant versus a senior accountant, right? And the main responsibilities for this role. We would love to know a little bit about what the project scope for this position is, right? So, hey manager, can you go ahead and explain to me a little bit about the project scope that the candidate is working for? Is there anything that's exciting about the project scope? Are they developing an app that's going to go ahead and create, financial freedom for some people? Or are they going to create, the next Google Maps or Apple Maps that's going to go ahead and essentially help people cut their commute by 5 minutes, right? Or are they working on a project that, maybe they're migrating one technology to another to essentially update their on-premise technology to the cloud? Whatever it is, we need to be able to understand what the project scope is so it can essentially create excitement for the candidate. We want to identify what the absolute must are for this role. Hey, hiring manager, can you tell me what this candidate must have? If you're looking at the job description, what does this candidate need to have that's going to make them successful in this position, right? For instance, are there any specific degrees, additional education, certifications, or licenses required for someone to be considered for this position, right? Like a doctor, a physician, I'm totally forgetting some, but, do they need to be able to have any of these, additional education, certifications, licenses? Maybe they need to be a CPA, right? Maybe they need to have some certifications for AWS. Whatever those are, we need to identify that. Are there any specific technologies that this person should be familiar with, right? If you're an accountant, working with accountants, these people definitely work with different technologies in logistics and construction, in technology. What are the specific technologies that this person should be familiar with, and years of experience, right? What I also love to ask with years of experience is there flexibility with that, right? If the job description says we're looking for someone with 5+ years of experience, I love to counter that and challenge that and say, hey, John, I know the job description says that we're ideally looking for somebody with 5 years of experience, but if I find you a great candidate that maybe has, 3-4 years of experience, but they have all your must-haves and they come from, a similar company and industry, would you like to see that candidate? 99.9% of the hiring managers will say yes. So make sure you challenge that, right? Hey, is there any flexibility with the years of experience? Candidate profile, right? So now we're moving into the candidate, what we're looking for in the ideal person. By understanding the ideal candidate profile, recruiters can effectively target candidates who match the desired qualifications and fit the organizational culture, improving the quality of the candidate in the hiring pipeline, right? So things I love to ask, what type of experience should this candidate ideally have? Does this candidate need to have industry experience? Is there any flexibility with that, right? So I'll give you a quick example. One of my clients is in the construction industry, and they're looking for an accountant, and the accountant that they're looking for needs to have construction experience, right? So that is for that main lander. You might be able to find a lot of your clients saying, hey, they need to have relative industry experience to the industry that we're in. What personality traits or characteristics would fit well within the team and organizational culture for this role, right? So, hey, tell me a little bit about, what this person needs to have in terms of soft skills. Do they need to be a go-getter? Do they need to be, an entrepreneurial mindset? Or are they just an individual contributor where you want them to come in and do their job, right? That's important to identify as well. What values, principles are important within the team organization? How should the candidate align with them? One of the previous companies that I worked at, personal development was really big. So when we were recruiting for that team, we would go ahead and ask them, hey, tell me a little bit about your personal development that you do outside of work, right? What are some of the values that align with you? Can you please share that with me? So all these questions, what type of experience should this person have? What type of industry experience, personality, values, and a cultural standpoint, it's really important to be able to identify from the hiring manager. Team structure. Understanding the team structure of a new job is very vital. It goes ahead and provides clarity on effective collaboration, integration within the team, and enabling a smooth transition and aligning with organizational goals, right? So, hey, hiring manager, tell me a little bit about the team structure, right? What's the size of the team, and can you tell me a little bit about who those key members are? Who will this person be reporting to? Will this person be an individual contributor, or will they be managing people? If they're managing people, can you tell me how many people they'll be managing? And how does this role interact with other teams and department within the organization, right? This is going to really depend on the company you're working with. Maybe they're a startup company where they're looking for this person to interact with multiple people, right? Multiple different departments. Or maybe this is, a big corporate position where you're just going to be dealing with the accounting department. You're just going to be dealing with the finance department, right? So we need to be able to identify this, because this is going to be crucial information that the candidate will definitely be asking you. Don't be surprised if the candidate says, hey, can you tell me a little bit about the team? Hey, how many people are in the team, right? Is this a individual contributor position, or, will I be managing people? Can you tell me a little bit more about that, right? So we need to identify those answers for the candidate. Location. This is huge, right? It is very important to identify if this position will be on-site, remote, or hybrid. After COVID-19, obviously the work dynamic has changed, and a lot of candidates are looking for remote or hybrid opportunities, which is perfectly fine. This is crucial to understand and important information to provide for your candidate, right? So when you talk about location with the hiring manager, as you can see, I have a lot of bullet points, and this is because it's really important to be able to understand what the responsibilities be for this candidate in terms of location. So first off, hey, what is the primary location for this role, right? Being able to understand where this position is going to be held is going to be very important. Are there opportunities for remote work? And if so, how often, right? So, hey, hiring manager, I understand that it seems like there's some remote work. Can you please let me know how many days out of the week are going to be remote? If fully remote, is there a certain region that you prefer this candidate to sit in? So for example, if the company is in San Francisco, are you okay with me looking at candidates in New York, right? There's a 3-hour time difference. So we need to be able to make sure that the company is okay with looking at candidates outside of the region that the company is in. If hybrid, can you tell me more about the hybrid schedule, right? Is there a structured schedule for in-office and remote work, or is it more flexible, right? Do they need to be in on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, or can they pick and choose what days they want to be able to come in? How does the company ensure that remote or hybrid team members stay connected and are engaged with the rest of the team? That is very crucial, right? If it is a remote first based company, they need to be able to establish how they are able to create culture via Zoom, via Teams, via Slack, whatever it is that they're using to communicate. Tell me a little bit about what you do to ensure that you're creating culture that's keeping the candidate happy to stay. Are there any expectations or requirements for occasional travel, right, to the office or other locations? That may be something that they do for people that are remote, right? Maybe at the end of each quarter, they fly everybody in for, a picnic. But we need to be able to identify that, right? Can the candidate do that? Are they okay with doing that? Is their travel reimbursed or supported by the company? So can you tell me a little bit about when this candidate is traveling from, Texas to San Francisco for a company trip? Do you reimburse them or do you pay for that? That's going to be very important because as some of you may know, if you've traveled, reimbursements at times, depending on the company, can take some time. Are you open to candidates who are looking to relocate? Maybe if this position is a hybrid or on-site, they may be open to candidates that are looking to relocate, especially if it's a niche role, right? But we need to be able to identify that, right? And if you are okay with candidates that are looking to relocate, do you offer any relocation package? If so, can you please share the details of what that looks like? Growth opportunities. This is another important topic, right? During a job intake with the hiring manager, gaining a clear understanding of what growth opportunities within the company is important for a candidate to be aware of, right? So some of the bullet points that I like to address is, can you share the potential career progression for someone in this role, right? What is that? What is someone who's coming in as maybe an entry-level position? What is their career path to be able to grow in this position? What does training look like for in this position? Is there even training, right? Or are we looking for someone that's going to be able to hit the ground running? Is there a defined career path within the organization for this position? Any mentorship programs, training sessions, or workshops that are available for employees to essentially become better at their job? Does your company support employees in, getting certifications, degrees, specialized training that's relevant to their role? Are there any opportunities for this employee to take on leadership roles or responsibilities? So growth opportunities, when you screen people, 99.9% of the time when you ask them why they're open to new opportunities, they're going to say, I'm looking for, growth. Okay, well, what does that mean, right? And we need to be able to identify what the candidate is looking for, but at the same time, identify what the client provides an opportunity and make sure that they align. Compensation, super important, right? Money isn't everything, but it's pretty important. Understanding the compensation and benefit packages is crucial to assess the overall value and attractiveness of the job offer. So things we want to be able to ask for. Hey, hiring manager, can we please talk a little bit more about compensation? What does the base salary range look like for this position? They'll most likely give you a low point, a midpoint, and a high point. Are we willing to look at candidates outside the comp range? Hey, I know that, we are targeting candidates up to $150,000, but if I find a candidate that's at, looking for $150,000, $160,000, are you open to seeing those candidates? Are there opportunities for performance-based bonuses or incentives? If so, can you please share more about that information, right? So being able to ask, is there bonuses? Is there commissions? Either of those, if you can either share about, how the bonus is paid. Is there a draw? If commissions, can you share the commission structure and how that's paid and when it's based, right? And when it's paid. Does the company offer any, stock options, equity grants, or any other ownership opportunities for the employees? If so, how does that stock option program work and what is the vesting schedule? Especially when you're getting down to more director level positions, CTOs, the C-suite, maybe some senior positions where stock options, equity grants, and all that type of stuff is involved. It's crucial to get an understanding of that, so you can definitely talk about that the first time with the candidate versus going back and forth between them and the client. So get an understanding of, what is the base salary? Is there any flexibility? Is there any bonuses, any incentives, especially if they're like in a sales position, maybe like you are, right? As a recruiter, you want to be able to understand what's the commission structure here, right? Does the company offer any stock options, equity grants? If so, how does that program work? Benefits. This is super important to a lot of people, especially, if they have kids, if they're married. Understanding the benefits offered helps your candidate evaluate the overall compensation package and make informed decisions about their job offers. So, hey, what are the benefits offered? What is the health insurance plans? Health insurance plans does the company offer, and what do they cover? Are there any options for dental, vision, or mental health coverage as well? Does the company offer retirement savings plans like a 401k? And is there a matching contribution? Can you please tell me a little bit more about that? What does that look like? What is the company's policy on PTO, including vacation days, holidays, or personal days, or do they, offer unlimited PTO? Please share that with me. How does PTO occur? And is it paid out upon leaving the company, right? Most places that offer unlimited PTO will not go ahead and pay PTO that's accrued, right? So that may be a turnoff or a turn on for some people. Some people never take PTO, so they want to be paid out if they ever leave the company. Some people take PTO all the time, right? So unlimited PTO, identifying what that looks like is going to be important for you to be able to clearly send that message to the candidate. Are there wellness programs or initiatives to support employees' physical and mental well-being? One thing that my company does that is super cool is we actually have a class pass that's offered to us through our benefits. I think that is the coolest thing. Is there anything like that your company does that may incentivize other people? Are there insurance options like life insurance, disability insurance, or long-term care insurance that are provided? Does the company provide any financial support or tuition reimbursement for further education? That is super big as well, right? So that's a big selling point that you can definitely have for people that maybe weren't able to finish college, or maybe they're still in college and definitely working, or maybe they want to further their education and get their master's or doctorates, right? Hey, do you guys provide any tuition reimbursement? I think that is so cool when companies do that. Legal and compliance, knowing the company's stance on hiring candidates with various immigration statuses, that's really important, right? To be able to see if they can assist with visa processes. Are there any specific eligibility criteria requirements related to citizenship, depending on the industry you're working with, security clearances, background checks, drug screens, obviously, COVID-19 vaccination statuses. Understanding these aspects is very crucial for candidates considering, relocation, visa sponsorship, based on legal or health status, right? So some of the questions I love to ask is, hey, John, are we open to seeing any visa candidates, right? If so, do you sponsor or do visa transfers? Can you walk me through what that looks like a little bit, right? I would definitely recommend you, if your company does, sponsor, or if the client that you're working with does sponsor, get a deep understanding of what their process looks like, right? Do they have a pathway to green card? This is a big selling point, especially in technology, right? We're working with a lot of people that are on H-1B visas, and a big selling point for them is the green card, right? A pathway to green card is a very shiny object to a lot of people, and I think it's super important that companies do that. And I have seen so much success with companies that do provide a pathway to green card, and again, I think it's super cool that they do that. Are U.S. citizens the only eligible candidates for government jobs or roles requiring security clearance, right? There's a lot of companies, that don't even take green card holders because maybe they're part of a government agency that only allows U.S. citizens to work there. So, some industries work very closely with the U.S. government. So it's very important to identify that before you start working on a role and you identify, maybe a TN visa candidate from, Canada, and he can't work with you because he's Canadian, right? Is there a background check or drug screening for this role? Can you tell me a little bit about it? 99.9% of, companies do a background check. Now, drug screening, that's, something that you'll have to identify with the company. COVID-19 vaccinations, are they required for this position? Do they require for, you to be on site and have a COVID vaccination? Walk me through that a little bit. What if the person's not vaccinated? Are you open to seeing them? Is there any flexibility with that? What if they only have one? Do they need to have both? Do they need to have a booster? Get some clarification on that. Any wellness programs or initiatives to support employees' physical and mental well-being. As I mentioned to you, my company, offers a class pass. A lot of companies offer, mental wellness programs as well that are really cool. Pay for gym memberships. What is that? Can you please explain that to me a little bit more? Are there insurance options that we've been able to go ahead and talk about, like disability insurance, long-term care insurance provided? And does the company provide any further support with education and reimbursements? Screening questions. I think this is now where, instead of understanding a little bit more about the company and the candidate profile, we're going to get a better understanding of how we're going to vet these candidates out, right? So we've talked about the company, we've talked about the job, we've talked about, the ideal profile. Now what we're doing is we're talking about specifically the person and the candidate you're talking to, whether that's on the phone, in person, or virtually, right? Asking hiring managers if they have specific questions or criteria they want you to address when vetting candidates is an excellent approach. This will help you demonstrate your willingness to align with their expectations and preferences, right? So some of the things that I like to ask the hiring manager directly is, hey, John, is there any particular information or specific questions that you would like for me to screen for during the candidates? This will go ahead and help save him time that he doesn't have to go ahead and ask these questions. He may want to, just to ensure that you guys are on the same page, but it'll definitely go ahead and help expedite the process. As I mentioned, this will help ensure that you're focused on the aspects and that most of the team, you're focused on the aspects that are most important for the role and your team, right? What I can also do, John, if you'd like, I can add that information in the submittal, right? Which is another topic that we'll be able to talk about. So screening questions, hey, is there anything that you would want me to go ahead and vet for? Is there any specific experiences that you want me to essentially, look for? Any technologies that you want me to screen for? If so, walk me through what you want me to ask. So when I get to that point, I can add it to the submittal, which leads us to our next process, right? Submittal, interview process, and timeline. Understanding the submittal and interview process and timeline is critical for effectively managing candidate expectations. As I talk to you, right, it is important to be able to set candidate expectations and create a great candidate experience. It allows you to provide candidates with a clear roadmap of the interview process, setting the stage for a positive experience, right? So first things first is, hey, John, who will be the point of contact for the submittals that I do, and is there anyone else I should, CC or tag in the submittal? What specific details would you like to see in the submittal? Typically, right, if you've been doing this for a long time, you'll know that you like to include the resume. Ideally, we go ahead and, address why the candidate is looking or reason for looking for a new position. I sometimes look to do, what type of ideal company they're looking for, especially if it resonates with the industry or company that you're working with. For example, if the person's like, I have a passion for clean sustainability and you're working with an EV company, by all means, add that into the submittal. Bullet points related to experience, right? So if they're looking for 5 years of experience with, full stack engineering, definitely add a bullet point of, what is this candidate's experience in the past 5 years with full stack engineering, right? Location preference, right? Is this candidate going to be, in California? Is it going to be fully remote? Understanding where the candidate is located is really, really important. Compensation expectations, work authorization, availability to start, and contact information, right? More importantly, we want to understand what the interview process for this position looks like. We need to set those expectations with the candidate, especially if they're already interviewing with other companies, right? How many interview rounds are typically conducted? Can you tell me a little bit about what type of interviews the candidate's going to expect, right? Is this going to be a cultural interview? Is there going to be a technical interview? Is there going to be a panel interview? Who's going to be involved in that? Can you share those LinkedIn profiles with me so, I can take a look into, a little bit more of those hiring managers that will be involved in the interview process? Will the interview be with hiring managers? Will it be with team members? Is it going to be with members of HR or other stakeholders? Do you know how long or on average does each interview take, right? Is this interview going to be in person? Is it going to be on Teams? Is it going to be on Zoom? Is it going to be via phone? How long is each interview going to be? Can you please share that with me? And at the end, who will be responsible for extending the job offer to the candidate? That is super important, guys. As a recruiter, you may want to be the person that's extending the offer, and I highly, 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 highly encourage you to be that person. But we do need to follow our client's process, and they may be the person that wants to extend the offer themselves. So understanding who's going to be extending the job offer is really crucial. And that's it, guys. Those are my notes. Those are, my ins and outs of a job intake meeting. I hope you found all this information very valuable. As I mentioned in the intro, if you have anything that you think I may have missed, or if you have anything that's worked for you, definitely add it into the comment section. I love collaborating with different people across the industry, and I can't wait to hopefully hear if you watch this video. I'd love to be able to see if you found success with any of this and understanding, how to do a job intake, and, hoping to hear some of your successes. Thank you, and I hope you guys have a good one.